Hello and welcome. Today, we'll be taking a look at the Nightlife mixer series from After Later Audio. Now, this is an expandable, customizable mixer series that allows you to mix and match modules to make your perfect mixer. Bartender is a 24 HP, 4-channel stereo mixer with the 2 send and return channels, headphone output, and all the different parameters that we're going to go over in just a minute. Then there's Barback, the 10 HP 2-channel stereo expander with all the same features as Bartender that ties in the back to the send and returns. And you see here I have 2 Barbacks added on. Now I could add as many Barbacks as I want, but if I want to add more sends and returns, you could actually daisy chain more Bartenders as well. And then there's Send VCA, which gives you CV control over your send, similar to pan and level. This Nightlife mixer series is out now, and note there are a few extra modules that kind of tie into the series without accessing the send and returns and stuff, but it does connect behind the scenes, so keep an eye out for those in the near future. You could find these modules at afterlateraudio.com or any of your favorite synth shop providers. And if they don't have it, just ask them if they could try to stock it. Now I'm going to do a quick rundown of a mixer channel here and what that looks like. Then I'll show you how to connect it all behind the scenes. Then we'll do a little patch example demos. And finally, some music at the end, like always. So the quick rundown without any patching or anything, I'm going to just do with channel 2 here. So we have in, left, and right. You could patch your stereo signal, set the switch to stereo, or you could do dual mono, or single mono with just inserting into the left. We then have a gain knob here, which adds up to 5 decibels of gain on the input. We have our send mount knob. We have our panning. We have our volume fader. And then we have 2 different sends, and it's a 3-way switch, so you could send it to no sends if you want to break your sends. You could go to send 1 or send 2, and you could set your send to be post or pre-mixer. We then have our mute switch, which is also 3-way, and it is momentary when it's down. And we'll show later that the mute is clickless. And then finally, we have our cue switch, which sends the track to the DJ cue, which brings us to the DJ cue headphones out here. We have our master headphone volume, and then we have a crossfader between what our mixer is outputting and our cue. We also have CV control over pan and level. And then connecting things behind the scenes, we have CV control over our send. Now you set up behind the scenes on the Send VCA groups of 4. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in my Send VCA. Now note, with the send, this is not an attenuator for your CV when that's plugged in. Your send still acts as your max volume, similar to what your fader would be if you plugged into the level. And then this would be your max volume for that VCA that it's turned into. And that's the whole mixer. And now let's take a look at how to connect this all behind the scenes. Okay, now I have everything all disconnected and at its factory setting, so to speak. And I'll just walk through connecting this. So first I want to connect this first Barback to the main Bartender. I'm going to go expander output. Be aware of the red stripe down. And expander input 1. And this will be sending the audio, send and return, and cue. And now we want to attach the second Barback to the first Barback. And we do the same thing, expander output to expander input. And if that's all you want for your bass mixer, all you have to do is power them all up. And then you just turn these around and you're good to go. But for ease of use for explaining the rest of this, I'm just taking the power cables out. And just know that on every module, it needs its own power, aside from Send VCA. I can connect another Barback to this Barback, but I don't believe that the send and return will work with that. So what you would need to do is connect a third Barback to expander input 2, to which you could add even a fourth Barback. Or you can mix things up and even put a Bartender into a Bartender and have a nice 8-channel at its base plus 2 more 12-channel stereo mixer. So now how do we attach to the Send VCA? Well, you see there's the connector on the top and the bottom. So what we want to do is decide what we want to be channels 1 through 4 and what we want to be 5 through 8. And you could decide on a per track basis which ones you want to go to the Send VCA or not. With these jumpers here, we'll see that they're all in the internal position, which means that the send on the module controls the send volume. And if we switch to external, it's now looking for a VCA send from the Send VCA. So you're not going to have any volume in any of your sends if you don't have Send VCA and you set this to external. But we're using Send VCA, so we're going to set all of these to external. And we're going to do the same thing on both barbacks. Okay, I have them all changed to external on the Send VCAs. And what I want to do is have the barbacks channels 1 through 4 and Bartender be 5 through 8. Now the one that makes the most sense is the 5 through 8 connection here with the Bartender. So I'm going to connect that. So remember to keep the red stripe down, and we're going to attach this to the bottom jumpers. And it says channel 5 through 8 on the PCB. But now how the barbacks route the Send VCA, it's a little bit backwards. You would think you would pull from this one, but you actually pull from the further one. And we pull that Send VCA and attach that to the top one. Let's flip this over. So that's how to get this whole thing all connected and to add on pretty much as many barbacks and bartenders as you want. Now we'll take a look at some patch demos to give you an idea of some techniques and tricks and uses for this mixer series. All right, so now I have some drums patched in. I have a sequence patched in here, but for right now, I'm just going to show you a single tone so you could get to hear certain features of Bartender and Barback. So right here, I have just a sine wave morphing into a double saw wave. We could hear with the fader all the way down. We don't hear anything. We can mute. Up turns it off. Down is the momentary. And I'll turn off the microphone here for a second, and you could hear or not hear how clickless it is. And I'll also show that on these drums. And then back to this real quick. And that is the Clickless Mute. We'll see if I switch to stereo, it's just the left channel. So we go mono, and we also have a second input here, which would just share all of the parameters that the first one is. And we also have the pan. And we can modulate that with CV. And here is a triangle wave. Speed it up. And slow it down. And that is the panning. Now we have this oscillator going in here. Why not use this as a VCA? So let's do that. I have my trigger going into carve for my envelope generator, and that's going into the level. And here's our sequence. Let's gain it a little bit. We could hear the gain hits before our level here, though it does cause some clipping. Let's just take out the level for a second. We have the clipping from the game going into the input even at the lower levels, so we could drive it a little bit nicely. And then we could drive it even more by turning it up past 0 dB. Though we're clipping it here, we could turn this master down. And we have some nice drive to our sine wave / saw wave versus that. So you could really push it with the module, and then you could give it heftier CV values in the level and push it as well. In showing the send and returns, to start, I'm going to show parallel compression little trick. All you do is patch your send into your return. And now, at first, this isn't going to do anything other than just gain our signal. And I go to send 1. So if I go pre, we could hear it without the level CV, so there's no VCA here. But this is not the compression. I'm going to go back to post. We're just adding gain. So what I actually have is a trigger on every quarter note going into the first channel of carve here, and that output is going into the input on the fourth channel of carve at a negative value, and the fourth channel is giving us a positive voltage. Now this is just gain, it's not compression. That's where Send VCA comes in. So this would be channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we go to channel 6 here, and we can hear when I go to pre and I turn the send up, we don't hear anything because it's waiting for a positive voltage. So I'm going to send it a constant positive voltage, but I have it ducked on every quarter note with some negative voltage modulating that positive voltage. So it's giving us that negative envelope. Now this is nice, but we don't have the VCA in here. So I'm going to go back to post, which is why this is a parallel, because it follows our master volume here, or basically you can't get more than 50% wet with this effect. And I'll do a longer envelope so we could hear it better. And then if we make the envelope for the sidechain shorter, we could kind of get a sweet little delay effect. Now with just this mixer, carve, and an oscillator, we've made a full voice synth with sidechain compression. And what happens if we plug that sidechain into the drums? Even though the drums are compressed, we can compress it more. Go to send 1. Now we got more pumping drums. You can see turning off the send gives us reduced volume because we're really pumping it through here. Let's check out the Cue output. All right, now I'm connected to the DJ Cue headphones, and we're just hearing the normal mix here because this top knob is turned to main. So we could obviously go to low volume. And be aware, this is going to get pretty loud right now. But let's go to the max volume. So you can see it could really drive some higher ohm headphones. And now let's check out the Cue, which doesn't have either track in it, but we could put the drums in, and you could see that it is pre-fader. So we could hear, if I stop my sequence, it's pre-everything. So we're hearing the non-VCA'd version of the oscillator. And then aside from the main left and right outputs that I'll switch back to here, we also have the mono output. I'll mono that for you in the video though. Now let's look at feedback patching with Bartender. First, we'll look at the mono master output, and then we'll look at using a send. Okay, let's say I have these drums patched in, and I want to just feedback the whole kit. I could use this master mono out, and I could go back in to the channel. And I'm going to just go on the last channel here. We'll see, as I increase the volume, we start to get crazy feedback. And we could gain it even more, or we start just getting clicks. But let's say we don't have quite as much gain on our whole output. And we're at about there then. We see if we pan it, we kind of lose it the further we go. But we could get that back with some gain. So with the gain, you could kind of dial in how nasty you want it to be, and then use that as your max. And we could do the same thing with a send and a return. I'm going to do send 1. And I'm going to set all my drums to send 1 and send max. And post for all the drums. Now notice it's not driving it as much because it's not the master output. We could still gain it quite a bit. And then if I gain the tracks themselves, we get more drive. And added some gain to that. We get into that heavy territory. But nowhere near as much as this. Which is a great DJ tool. Just patch the outputs into a reverb afterwards. And it's a lot more exciting. I stopped the audio. So this is just from feedback on itself. So I'm going to turn the gain down. And we're still getting that self-oscillation. Nothing's plugged in and we get that self-oscillation. Now I'm going to just play around for a second here. And now, a little jam.